Ladies and gentlemen, the Ground and Pound cast is back. We had to take a little bit of a break. We had some scheduling conflicts, and also we had some, slow activity in the UFC world. So we just weren't really covering everything, but we are back. So in case you missed us, we missed you too. So anyway, with all that said, it is me, your host, the world's okayest jiu-jitsu blue belt, Vince, and I am joined with the soothsayer of the MMA world, Nost Roy Damas. We call him Roy for short. Tell everybody hi, Roy.
Oh,
You sound excited.
it's these Apex cards, man. They're really getting me going, let me tell you.
Right. And that's actually a good point. So we've decided to do a little bit of a change with the Ground and Pound cast. And I think all of you will enjoy this. So with events happening almost every single weekend throughout the year, and a lot of these events are not really worth going in depth covering, sometimes we feel like the show's getting a little stagnant. We come on and we just tell everybody what happened last weekend, and it's not really all that exciting. We're doing that every single week whenever most of you are watching the fights yourselves anyway, so I don't think we need to break down every single event, every single week. We want to mix it up. We want to make things a little bit more exciting. So instead of recapping everything on these Apex cards on a bunch of fights that didn't really move the needle, we're going to instead do some breakdowns of the various weight classes. We're going to talk more about MMA news. We're going to talk about things that are more relevant instead of just repeating what we saw last week. I think this is going to be a good direction for this show. I think it's going to make it more exciting for all of you people that want to follow MMA and be more in tune with what's going on instead of just reading the play-by-play and hearing the play-by-play from us. We're going to get better discussions going, talking about the world surrounding mostly UFC, but we'll talk about some other MMA stuff as well. Also,
we got to talk about Netflix stepping into the arena.
Yeah, we can talk about that as well. I think I might also do a little BKFC. I renewed my BKFC subscription. Haven't even started watching that yet. I got a reminder. I was checking my email about your BKFC subscription renewal, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, oh, yeah, I did renew that. I ain't even tuned in yet. I've had it for the last couple of months.
Terrible.
I know, terrible. What kind of bare knuckle fighting championship fan am I? Shame.
The kind that can't name anyone other than Diamond.
Diamond? Who's Diamond? I know Mike Perry.
Yeah.
Ben Rothwell, Andrei Arlovsky. There's a few.
Mike Perry, the Diamond.
Is he the Diamond?
I thought he was.
I don't know. I don't think he is. I mean, we know the former UFC guys who have made a name for themselves in BKFC, which is what any of them really are. So anyway, all that being said, we really want to talk this week about the light heavyweight division, and I think we're going to talk about the heavyweight division as well, but we're most going to focus on the light heavyweight division. So, as you all know,
Platinum, not Diamond.
Platinum. It was one of those precious stones.
Yeah, it was something that was worthwhile.
Right. So anyway, as you all know, the light heavyweight division kind of had some strange things happen where you have a guy who hasn't lost to anybody except for Alex Pereira, finally gets another loss against a guy who won the title, but in winning the title, he destroys his ACL. And it's kind of left the light heavyweight division a little bit of a turmoil because you have the guy who should be ranked like right at number one below the champion. He's already had 3 failed attempts at the title. And then the current champion with the blown ACL. And then you look at a lot of the other names at the top of the division, and a good bit of them are coming off of losses. So it's kind of leaving the light heavyweight division in a bit of a weird state. And we here at the Ground and Pound cast, that is me, Roy, and Rick, we've all been having a lot of internal discussions on what the future might hold for the light heavyweight division. And the future is a little bit unclear. So what we want to do is spend this week to focus on the light heavyweight division as a whole and what we think needs to happen for the UFC to get back on track with this division. So I'm going to turn it over to Roy. I want to get your thoughts on what is going on, especially at the top of the division, the top 6-ish names or so, and what you think we should do, what the UFC should do to get this division back on track?
All right. So as far as back on track, I think that's more a talking point than a reality. The only thing that has happened here recently is that Oldberg is out for 9 months to a year. If we were worried about champions being out for 9 months, we wouldn't be excited about Hamzat making his return next month. We wouldn't be talking about that. We'd be talking about interim championships. So it really depends on how long Oldberg is going to be out to see if there's any real wrinkles that come out of this. You've got Ankalaev, who's the only one who's going to suffer from this, really, because he was obviously up next for the title shot. Alex Pereira already left the division. Yuri, like you said, he's already had 3 failed attempts and 1 successful interim attempt. He's used up his chances. Blachowicz is going to be retiring soon. Roundtree he's good. Just think that there's levels to this, and he's not up to the next level. Paulo Costa will be exciting to see what he does. 205, I think Costa looked a lot more natural and a lot more like he was able to he had better endurance and more power.
Yeah, I think it looked really good.
But all we've got right now is a division where everybody's the rankings are in shambles, but nobody was challenging for that heavyweight belt for the next 6 months anyways, or for that light heavyweight belt for the next 6 months regardless.
Right. And you mentioned, if he's out for 9 months, we don't know for sure if it's 9 months. It's just kind of like a spitball number here. It could be 9 to 12 is like a decent window. And you say
he said his doctor expects 6 to 9 months. The average for an ACL is 9 to 12 months. So I'm just kind of splitting the difference. Yeah,
that sounds fair. But even so, let's say we go on the higher end of that, we look at 9 to 12. And as you pointed out, like with Chimaev, with how long he takes between fights and he's a current champion, this is not like really putting things on hold, kind of like we've seen with the heavyweight division, which we'll talk about in a little bit. A champion that I've been touting for quite a long time, former champion at this point, Zhang Weili. If you actually go back and look at her title run, she was only fighting about once every 10 months. And there was no injury there. That was just her fight schedule. So for Oldberg to be out 9 to 12, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Right. I don't think it's that big of a deal. And I know one of the other things that people are talking about with the light heavyweight division is when you do look at all these names that are in the top, 7, 8, 6, whatever, the top portion, let's call those the contenders, the top half of the rankings. A good bit of them are coming off of losses. Okay, while that is fair, that's just kind of just the way things have played out. How often have we seen a person lose a fight, then win a fight, and then immediately get a title shot? So it's not out of the ordinary for someone to be on a 1 or 2 fight win streak and be looking at a title shot. So even if these guys are coming off of losses, I don't really think that's that big of a deal. So the easy solution is you get some of the better people that are in the top, let's say 7-ish people. And I say 7 because I'm trying to include Paulo Costa. I think he should be ranked number 6. I think he should be above Jamal Hill at this point, but I don't make the rankings. You have Jamal Hill at 6, Paulo Costa at 7. Get a few of these guys and have them start facing each other. You get 2 people with 2 impressive wins. They're going to be in the win column at this point. Have them face off against each other. If we need to have an interim title, that would be a good interim title fight. So at that point, your interim champion is on, at minimum, a 2-fight win streak. Then he could go unify against Oldberg. And I think at that point, everything will just be back in order for the light heavyweight division. That's why I don't really think it's in that bad of a shape as some people are making it out to be. Rick.
No, they're reactionary. They're literally looking at the champ is down.
Right. And we've seen this before, we've seen plenty of times where a champion is out for an injury. He takes a little longer than normal to come back, but then he comes back and everything's back on schedule. Like we've seen that every single division at some point has had something like that happen that I could think of at least. So
heavyweight probably the best thing that could have happened ended up being Tom being out for a little while.
To let some other pieces move around?
Yeah, to let some of the rankings shake out and a couple new superstars come up like Waldo Cortez or Cortez Acosta and Hokett.
Josh Hokett, that guy.
Oh,
that guy.
Natural lightweight, and he's dominating the light heavyweight, and he's dominating the heavyweight division.
Yeah. Yeah, so we talked about this guy already, and I've already said this, but it bears repeating. The guy runs his mouth a lot, and he's obviously doing a gimmick. He's actually doing multiple gimmicks. If you follow, like, whenever he's doing backstage segments, when he's doing weigh-ins, when he's at press conferences, when he's getting interviewed after fights and interviewed before fights, he's doing all these gimmicks, and it really does come across as really annoying. And it's like, God, I wish this guy would shut up. I wish that someone would knock him out. And
well, you know that he majored in theater in college, right?
I did not know that, but it actually makes sense. I was going to say that what he's doing, whether I like it or not, whether you like it or not, whether anyone likes it or not, it is working. It's getting eyeballs on him. This dude went from unranked to fighting
the White House.
number 5 to fighting at the White House in just a very short amount of time. He went from being a nobody to putting on a display in front of the president in a few months. So he's doing something right. He was unranked and now he's 5. And we talked about this before. Well, before we go too far into that, are we done talking about the light heavyweight division? I feel like we kind of glossed over it really quickly.
Well, at the top of the division, I think we covered it pretty well. Now, there's questions about, numbers 8 to 15 and where that's going to go. I mean, with Johnny Walker and Dominic Reyes putting on the most lackluster performance of the year, what do you even do with those guys from here? Johnny Walker looked terrible and lost.
Yeah, I would say if we're looking for contenders, bare minimum, just cut off number 9 and down. Just cut them all off. And you got Azamat Murzakanov, who just lost Paulo Costa, but that's his first loss. So he shouldn't be immediately counted out, and then Acosta at 7. And then above that, it's mostly former champions with the exception of Roundtree. But Roundtree's had, win, lose, win, lose, win, lose. But overall, he's still pretty competitive. So, yeah, I really think when I look at all these names, I almost want to say Jan Blachowicz is out of the question. He's fighting. Who's he fighting? He had a draw against, was it Guskov? Or was it Ozdemir? It's one or the other. He had a draw with, and he's having a rematch with him soon. But I think with how he's performed lately, let's remove him. The way Jamal Hill's looked lately, I'm surprised he's still at number 6. Let's remove him. So when you look at like Azamat, Costa, maybe Roundtree, Yuri. Yuri's had a lot of shots lately, so maybe remove him from the rankings. You're still left with a handful of people a lot of people here. Alex Pereira is still in the rankings, and I don't know why. I have no idea why he's ranked there. He ranked at number 2, but whatever. He's not really involved either. So you're left with Ankalaev, Roundtree, Costa, Azamat. Get a few of these guys, have them face each other, ones that haven't faced each other already. I would like to see Costa and Ankalaev.
Yeah.
If Costa beats Ankalaev,
he could get a reputation as the Russian killer.
Right. And that's actually, I think, the route that I would like to go. So Ankalaev hasn't lost to anyone except for Pereira, not counting years ago whenever it was that loss against Paul Craig. But like since the Paul Craig match, he's won every single match with the exception of a draw he had against Blachowicz at one point. But other than that, he's beaten everybody. Oh, I think there's also no contest. He had a few weird fights. There's like a draw, no contest, some controversial endings, but no one's been able to beat him except for Pereira, and he went 1-1 with Pereira. Then you got Costa came in and looked great at light heavyweight and beat a guy who was undefeated. Because I look at all these other guys, they're all people who's had shots recently and lost. Yuri Prohaska is lost his last 3 title shot opportunities. Blachowicz had a few recent title opportunities and he lost them. Like the draw he had against, I against Ankalaev was for the vacant title. Roundtree had a shot against Pereira and lost. Jamal Hill had his shot against Pereira and lost, and he's also been knocked out by Yuri and Roundtree, so he's out of it. So I think Costa and Ankalaev is the move to make, in my opinion, when I look at these rankings.
I agree with you. Costa really impressed me at light heavyweight. He's going to be a force there if he keeps up with it. Now, I was really surprised that Mirzakhanov, he just basically gave up from being kicked so many times, but Costa looked good enough that I could see a number one contenders match against Ankalaev. That puts them fighting, say, 3 months, and then give Ulberg 6 months to heal to come back to fight one of them for the belt. It would work out perfectly.
I think it's a great way to go. And in the meantime, some of these other people that are still floating in the top have, some of them face each other who haven't faced each other already. So you could continue the cycle of keeping, the best people at the top. Like I said,
the problem we're running into, and this is across most divisions,
right,
is that the people at the top are not being active. So the divisions move so slowly.
Yeah. Right.
Glacier slow.
Not every division. I would say welterweight is moving pretty well. Lightweight is moving pretty well. Even featherweight. I mean, but I know what you're saying though. A lot of them are moving really slowly at the top. Like flyweight, I've been touting flyweight for a while, but really, like it's 3 to 4 guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I get what you're saying, though. I think what we need to do is set up Costa and Ankalaev, and then just have these other guys face each other and kind of shake up the rankings. Maybe give some of these other guys, these up and comers, some opportunities.
Well, in the UFC contract, they say they have to offer you 3 fights a year. I think you should have to accept 3 fights a year.
Yeah.
That would fix a lot of the money complaints, give people a chance to move up, and we would get less crap cards and more high-ranking cards. Let the feeder divisions deal with what we're calling Apex cards now.
Yeah. And it really does become a grind watching all these Apex cards. Like, I want to keep up to date with all of UFC. I'm not a casual fan. I like to keep with all of it. But whenever you have an event every single Saturday, or almost every single Saturday, what they said is like 40-something weeks a year, something like that. Almost every single Saturday, I have other things I like to do with my life, and whenever it's a whole bunch of nothing cards, because the UFC is doing this thing where they want to sign as many people as they can. They sign all these people. They have them face each other on these Apex cards, like no-name people making their UFC debuts. Some of them will lose their one match, then disappear. You never hear from them again. It's kind of a grind to keep on tuning in for all of these potential future names, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fighters that the vast majority, 97%, will never hear from again after you watch them fight that one time. So it's a bit of a grind, and I don't know about you, I'm kind of burnt out on tuning into every single fight night. There's an occasional fight night that will come up and like, okay, this is a decent looking one, but some of these Apex cards, man, I've seen somewhere like the main event of an Apex card is like, wait, I know one of these guys, I don't know the other one. It's crazy.
See, we got to have this conversation when I'm coming off of what is a good Apex card, because this last week it was one decision after another through the prelims and the main card. Only 2 fights finished the entire night, and neither one had any bearing on the divisions.
Yeah, right. I'll be honest with you, I didn't even watch it. I was hanging out with family. I was like, oh, it's a fight night. I should probably tune in. I'm going to hang out with the family for now. Then you texted the chat saying it's been a whole bunch of decisions. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not even going to bother. Not even going to bother tuning in.
Yeah, I mean, Aljo, he did enough to win. He didn't do enough to put himself in title contention.
Yeah, I did read. So he fought Zalal, who's looked really good lately. And after Aljamain won, he called out Volkanovski. I mean, he might get that shot, though, because Not that we want to jump down and talk too much in that division, but Volkanovski's basically beat everybody else there is to beat near the top, with the exception of Evloev. Yeah. I've been calling him Evloev forever. It's Evloev, according to Bruce Buffer. And hey, he's better at pronouncing names than I am. I mean, he does it for a living. He gets paid to do it. So, so Volkanovski, I'm pretty sure is going to be fighting Evloev next. But Aljamain Sterling being a former champion and then beating Zalal, who has been on a pretty solid run lately, I could see him being next. Like, Evloev is next. He'll be after. If they want to keep Sterling busy, maybe put him against Murphy. I don't know.
Yeah, and Evloev is not the most exciting fighter. Neither is Aljo. So we need somebody, another Lopez to come up who is exciting to watch for Volkanovski to eat.
Yeah, if Evloev wins that match, and he's undefeated, he very well could. It will be one of these champions we're not going to be excited to see. He grinds you out. What's his finish rate? Let me pull it up real quick. I know it's not that high. He's mostly a decision artist, if I'm not mistaken. Give me a minute. Yeah, so he has 3 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission, 13 by decision. Yeah, he's one of those guys who's a really good wrestler, and he just grinds you out for 15 minutes or 25 minutes if it's a main event. So that's what we have to look forward to if Evloev wins that. Now, on the bright side, if there is one upside to that happening, I know it's kind of a meme at this point to make fun of like how Diego Lopez keeps getting opportunity after opportunity, but let's be realistic here. There's something called rotating title syndrome. You know, you have someone who keeps losing to the champion, but that champion loses the title. Well, now you have another opportunity because they haven't faced the new champion yet, right? And I would totally be down with watching Lopez versus Evloev, because if you've seen their first match, and I didn't watch it live when it first happened, I didn't realize the superstar Lopez would become, but I went back and watched it, and that was a very competitive match. Lopez almost finished Evloev in that match. He had him in a couple of submission holds that were pretty deep, and Evloev barely survived those. So I think Lopez has gotten a lot better since then. I think he could be quite competitive against Evloev. So, but that's another story. Going back to the big boys in the UFC, so another problem about the light heavyweight division is the champion. Anytime you have a champion just vacates and leaves, the title kind of loses some of its prestige, because whoever the next champion, doesn't matter who it is, it doesn't matter how good he is, it doesn't matter how he wins. When he does win the title, there's going to be the narrative that, oh, you're not the real champion because the real champion left. We've seen that a million times already. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Alex Pereira is looking to be a 3-division champion now because he wants to go fight in the heavyweight division. So do we want to bounce back to heavyweight now and talk more about that?
Yeah, we can talk about some heavyweights here. I love that Alex Pereira and Cyril Gane are going to fight for an interim title while Tom Aspinall is back in the gym, and very well they could sign him. They just don't want to talk terms.
See, that's another thing that's just drives me crazy about this division. Like, it's messy. It is so messy. When John Jones was champion, it was messy because he called out a guy who was coming off of a loss and a very long layoff. Like, the dude is essentially already retired. Stipe Miocic, that is. He's basically already retired, just without officially, claiming that he was. He calls him out for his title defense and then does everything he can to avoid Tom. He avoids the fight. He avoids the negotiations. We're not going to go down. We've ranted about that topic enough, but I'm just reiterating that a lot of the issue was not only the champion not wanting the fight, but it had to do with the negotiations behind the curtains and talking terms and stuff like that. And we were hoping that whenever we no longer have Jones in the mix, we have a new champion who's planning on sticking around and planning on fighting the best, Tom Aspinall, that is. We were hoping that we'd be past all this mess, we get an active division moving once again, and instead we have Tom Aspinall gets injured, he has to have surgeries, he is not exactly seeing eye to eye, pun honestly not intended there, with Dana White. And so there's negotiations disputes. There's rumors of him wanting to go into boxing. There's the injury. There's all this messy stuff going on to where we still, to this day, don't know when Tom is supposed to actually return to competition.
This is your heavyweight champion you're talking about. When it comes to negotiations, that's the guy that has the power. He's built the name for himself. If you're going to sign no-name boxers to Zuffa Boxing for $15 million, you got to do at least that well by your heavyweight champion.
While I do agree, I don't necessarily. I agree with your second half of that point you made. The first half saying that Tom being the heavyweight champion means that he holds the power. He really doesn't. Dana White and Hunter Campbell, UFC entity, historically has really kept their thumb down on fighters. You know, that's why, even though I'm not a huge fan of the guy because he's kind of a jerk, but that was one of the big complaints, or one of the big reasons for the rivalry between Dana White and Tito Ortiz back in the day. It is historic that UFC is a kind of a business where they are looking out for themselves more than they are their fighters. And to a point, understand why.
Ngannou and everything that happened because he demanded health insurance.
Yeah, that's another example of it. Like I understand they're a business, and a business is all about making the money, but there has to be some give and take, you know, for any kind of working relationship, whether it's a guy working at McDonald's or a professional athlete, there has to be some give and take, and to a point that both have certain leveraging power over each other, depending what angle you look at it. But historically, UFC has really kept their thumbs down on fighters in general. So Tom Aspinall, and any champion for that matter, I don't think holds as much power as some people might think.
No, but it really should. The heavyweight
should. I agree.
Is supposed to be your premier division. These are the big boys. These are the knockout artists, and Dana has let it whittle away into freaking nothing.
I agree with you, but I also see the reality of it. So, you know, this heavyweight division. So, all right, so we have Pereira going against Gane for the interim title. What happens if Pereira wins?
Well, he fights Tom.
See, this is where it gets really interesting to me, and you know that people are going to be questioning this and talking about this if this happens, right? Let's say hypothetically Pereira wins. Where does that leave Ciryl Gane? A lot of people will say that he was beating Tom in that 4 minutes or so that he did fight him. Their fight never was officially concluded, so that fight still needs to happen. So I'm not saying that I think Gane needs to be given some extra privilege to have a shot against Tom. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that you know that there's going to be a big narrative around it. If Pereira does win that match, and so Gane has to go into the back of the line again, you know there's going to be a big narrative about, you know, that fight, that rematch not happening between Tom and Gane. So Let's say hypothetically, let's take it a little bit further. Hypothetically, Pereira beats Gane. Tom versus Pereira. Let's say Tom wins. Does Gane get yet again another opportunity?
Tom said that he wants to fight Gane. He said he wants him.
It's just, I get it, but it just seems weird. Again, going through the hypotheticals, so that means Gane will be coming off of a no contest against Tom, then a loss against Pereira, and then still get a title shot. It can only happen because it's a messy division. And then you also have to look at some of these.
Who else is Gane going to get challenged by here?
Well, as actually was about to get into, not just who's Gane going to get challenged by, but who is Tom going to get challenged by.
He can climb the division again, and just, you know, watch out for Hokett's crazy ass.
Right, and that's actually what I was going to get to. So, you know, in the meantime, while you have the whole Pereira, Tom Gunn situation brewing. In the meantime, you have these other contenders. We've talked forever since before the podcast is formed. We've been talking about how we want this heavyweight division to get shaken up and have some new blood come through to, remove these stagnant names to get the division more active again with new, young, hungry contenders. Mm-hmm. We're actually starting to see that a little bit. So with Acosta flying up the rankings, because I think when this podcast began, he was at the very bottom of the rankings, wasn't he? Like somewhere in outside of the top 10. Now he's at number 4. You have Hokit's just leapfrogged up to number 5. There's still a few other names that are outside of the top 15 that I'm anxious to see.
You have Walker, who's been heel hooking everyone, but asked for himself to be taken out of the ranking.
What is that about?
I don't know. He's worried about climbing too fast, which just seems odd to me. While
That's
you're
dumb.
on fire, you strike while the iron's hot or whatever.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That is so dumb. I think, Rick and I make fun of Johnny Walker, his brother, all the time because of how goofy and how dumb he comes across. And he might not be dumb. It could just be that he just being silly, being funny, and it comes across as like a gimmick, like a dumb, silly, cartoonish gimmick. But after seeing Walter Walker, it's like, are their parents related? Seriously, you're in the bottom of the top 15 and you have a whole bunch of stagnant names that have been in the rankings for a very long time and aren't going anywhere. It's a perfect opportunity to really build yourself up. Even if you do take a loss, if you jump too fast, do take a loss, it's not going to, it might slow you down a little bit, but not really. It's going to slow you down more by removing yourself from the rankings. So I don't know. I just don't understand the long-term plan behind that. That is one of the dumbest moves ever. I saw he was out of the rankings a few weeks ago, and I was like, why is he out of the rankings? And I went and because he hasn't lost. Why would he be out of the rankings? And I went and looked it up, and I saw he asked to be removed, and I just don't understand that. When we need hungry competitors moving up, you need the opposite of that. You need to be him saying, hey, I want to face number 7, 8, 9. I want to face one of these guys, That's what he should have been doing. There's other people that we've talked about before that are unranked that I want to see fight some ranked people. I've mentioned Mario Pinto and what's the other guy's name? Just won a few weeks ago that I touted as being a really good, well-rounded fighter. His name always slips in my mind whenever I talk about hungry competitors. Isn't it Vitor Petrino? That's the other name. Popped in my head. That's another name. These guys are both unranked and have been on an absolute tear. I want to see them fight some ranked people. So yeah, I don't want to hear a ranked fighter saying I want to move up too fast. That is ridiculous. The opposite of that is Josh Hokit. As much as I don't like him, he is doing the right thing. He is putting me against the best. I want to fight anyone. And he's going to talk a whole bunch of nonsense to get a spotlight put on him.
Acosta fought 5 times last year and then fought again in January. Hokit has fought 3 times since November. And it looks like the way to get to the top of the heavyweight division is just show the heck up to fight.
Yeah, exactly.
3 fights and he's number 5, number 5, 6 fights, and Waldo Costa went from nobody to number 4. Volkov and Pavlovich haven't even fought in that span hardly.
Yeah.
They could very easily lose their spots.
Oh, speaking of people losing their spots, I've been ranting forever about 2 names in particular. Why are they still ranked? I keep on mentioning it. And I have some good news. Colby Covington is no longer ranked.
Really?
He is no longer ranked. Finally, Chandler's still ranked. Then I'll continue complaining about that. But at least Colby is no longer ranked. I think just from inactivity. I remember losing my mind when I saw he moved up a spot. I'm like, the dude hasn't fought. And on top of that, he's on a losing streak. How did he move up? I don't get it.
Oh man, if we're going to talk about lightweight, let's talk about Patty coming in to take out the Frenchman.
Of that fight, I am excited for. I don't even know who's
Yeah,
going to win. Like, that's such a toss up for me, man. I think Patty is overall more talented. Like, from a skill perspective across the board, I think Patty is more skilled, but I think Benoit Saint Denis is more ruthless. Just more. He's got that dog in him. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So, but I mean, so does Patty. I don't know. That fight's gonna be so good.
It's going to come down to one thing. Does Patty stand and try to box like he did with Gaethje, or does he play to his strengths and go for grappling and aggressively attacking submissions?
But the thing is, Benoit's ground game is really good as well.
Yeah, but if Benoit stands with Patty, he's just going to beat him into the dirt. At least on the ground, Patty's competitive.
Patty can still be competitive on his feet. Benoit Saint Denis. I think
he
both
got
these guys.
exposed big time with Gaethje.
Well, I think both these guys are better grapplers than they are strikers. But it's like they're decent strikers, but they're very different styles of strikers. You have Patty's like when he does strike, it's clean. It's not like super crisp and technical like say Ilia Topuria, but like his style is leaning more towards like the clean, crisp striker. You could tell it still needs some polishing, obviously, with the loss he had against Gaethje. But I mean, like the style he's going for is like a crisp, clean striker, where Benoit Saint Denis is more like just an ugly, nasty brawler. But they're both much better on the ground than they are on the feet. So even if it does go to the ground, it's still a toss-up.
Yeah.
I think maybe Patty might be slightly better on the ground, but
Patty's strength isn't necessarily that his ground game is better than anyone else's. It's that he is constantly digging for a submission. From the moment he hits the ground, he's grabbing at limbs, he's twisting things, he's controlling things. He's always working towards some submission somehow.
right.
A lot of people, they go to the ground and they stall. Patty doesn't stall. He attacks something.
Correct. And then Benoit Saint Denis, to point out a little bit of an Achilles heel here when it comes to the ground game. As good as his ground game is, he does have one problem, and that is if you put him in a bad position on the ground, his ability to get out of that spot doesn't seem to be as good as some other ground specialists. And I say that because of the fight he had with Moicano. Moicano beat him with jiu-jitsu. Not that he beat him with a submission. He used jiu-jitsu skills to immobilize. Like, you can almost say like he out-wrestled him. Like Moicano out-wrestled, but it wasn't wrestling. He was using jiu-jitsu technique to immobilize Benoit Saint Denis, and while he had him immobilized, he just kept hitting him with strikes, and he turned him into hamburger meat. So, but then Paddy Pimblett doesn't have that same style of jiu-jitsu. Like you said, he's not the guy who wants to pin you, control you, and bludgeon you. He's one of the ones that's going to keep throwing wild submissions at you. So it's a little bit of a different style there. So it's still a big question mark. That's why I think it's going to be a good fight. I could look at several different ways that, these fights could go, that this fight could go. I could see ways that Benoit wins this. I could see ways that Patty wins this. It's really a toss-up. I think at the end of the day, though, it's going to be a really good fight.
Yeah, I think this is the best matchup that they could have made directly after the loss to Gaethje. We had discussed this, and Benoit Saint Denis was who we all had decided the next matchup for Patty should be in the wake of that specific loss.
Yeah. Man, looking at these rankings, just this entire page, I think I could talk all day about every division and the fights I would like to see, the fights that are upcoming. I was really wanting to look at these heavyweight and the light heavyweight divisions, but I really think we've said the important things on these divisions, so I could just ramble about any of these other divisions. I mean, since we're mentioning lightweight, lightweight also, if you look at all the divisions, we talk about heavyweight and light heavyweight being a little bit messy because of various things going on. I actually think that lightweight is the next messiest. Not that it's a bad division. It is probably the most stacked division. But the top of the card is a little weird because you have So you got the interim champ facing the champion. Okay, that's all routine. You got Arman Tsarukyan, ranked number 2, who for some reason UFC just hates his guts and they don't want to give him opportunities. You have Charles Oliveira and Max Holloway have already both lost to the champion, and they were both recently fighting for the BMF title. Charles Oliveira is obviously going down the BMF route. Who knows what Max Holloway is going to do at this point? He's already lost lightweight opportunities and featherweight opportunities, so he's just kind of
they're talking about Max Holloway fighting Conor McGregor at the White House, or not at the White House, at International Fight Week.
Yeah, that's still that's talks. There's nothing set in stone yet, but even so, like that fight it's a fun fight, but it's not gonna be. There's gonna be no title implications, no title picture implications for that, So Patty just lost. Like I said, Oliveira's going down the BMF route. Arman is just kind of in rankings purgatory at this point. And then everyone below that, lightweight I think is a little bit messier than people realize. I think it's still probably the best division when it comes to overall talent. But when it comes to the title picture, I think it's a little bit on the murky side. The rest of the divisions overall, I think, aren't looking too bad.
No, we've definitely got some good fights coming up this next weekend in Perth. Jack Dingo Ate My Llama against Carlos Prates is going to be just an epic banger.
Man, that's going to be a good fight.
Yeah, I full on am pulling for Jack Dilly Llama.
I don't think I'm pulling for either one, but I'm predicting that Prates is going to win. I'm not pulling for him.
He's 12 out of his last 13 fights he's ended by knockout,
something like that. It's pretty impressive.
Insane,
and since we're talking about welterweight, I don't know if it's set in stone yet. I don't know if it's officially booked, but I'm seeing that it's supposed to be Ian Gary fighting Islam Makhachev next.
Yeah, I've seen that too, and I'm down for that fight.
Oh, me too, absolutely. I mean, Ian Gary's going to fight for the title at some point eventually. He was. He's really good. His only loss was in a very close fight against Shavkat, who, by the way, is no longer ranked strictly because of inactivity. It's crazy that they removed him for inactivity after that amount of time when there are other people that have been inactive for longer that were still ranked, but I digress. Regardless, Ian Gary's only loss was against a guy who's undefeated, who's no longer ranked. And then outside of that, you have Morales. Welterweight's actually looking pretty good. As far as like title picture goes, it's looking pretty solid.
It's
Morales,
it's pretty much a straight path forward. You got Gary, and then the winner of JDM versus Prates. If it's Prates, you got to give him Islam.
Yeah, you still have Bilal Muhammad ranked at number 4, who's a really good fighter. He's not going to fight Islam. Their buddies are not going to fight, but he can still give people trouble in the top for a while. You have Kamaru Usman, Leon Edwards, both former champions that are still trying to work their way back up. You have Joaquin Buckley's fighting Sean Brady, if I'm not mistaken. Aren't they booked? And those are two really good fighters. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so you got number 6, number 9 ranked Sean Brady and Joaquin Buckley. Bonfim, Malat. Malat just had a really impressive win.
You need to get somebody in there who is aggressive for Michael Venom Page to counterpunch.
Yeah. Mike Malat just fought, and he beat Gilbert Burns. He retired Gilbert Burns. Yeah. And then before that, he beat Kevin Holland. He's actually, Mike Malat. I think it's kind of a dark horse.
Mike Malat beat Kevin Holland was really BS, man.
And that was, remind me again, was it
he kicked him in the junk twice.
Oh, yeah, that was that fight, yeah. I just look at his overall record. So he had in his early in his career, before he's even in the UFC, he had 1 loss and 1 draw. All the rest of them were wins. And then since joining the UFC, he's only had 1 loss ever. And that was to the Comeback King. Neil Magny. And that was, if I remember correctly, that was actually the first of Neil Magny's massive comebacks that I remember talking about. It was before the podcast was formed. Malott was... That was the fight I remember. Whenever I was watching it, I said that Malott on paper should win this because going into it, he's 10-1-1. And Neil Magny is a Koopa Troopa. And I said that on paper, Magny should lose this. But my gut is telling me on my predictions to go with Magny. So I'm going to go with Magny. But I still think if they fought 10 times, Malott wins 9 of those fights. But I think this is that 1 out of 10. I have a feeling Magny's going to pull it off. And I remember my son came over and watched it with me. And Malott whooped Magny for 1 round. Almost finished him. And I said, something's telling me Magny's going to make a comeback. Second round, Malott whoops him again for the second round. So he's going into it, 2018, going to the third round. And then he tries to grapple with Magny because Malott has really good grappling base. He tries to grapple with him. That's actually how he's beating him. He was taking him down and hitting him with ground and pound. And at some point, Magny ended up reversing something, ended up turning him around, puts him on his back, and then Neil Magny just climbs on top of him and just starts raining down punches of elbows and wins by TKO. I was like, I knew it. Oh, with 15 seconds left of the fight, by the way. Ooh. It was like one of the ultimate comebacks of all comebacks. It was beautiful to watch. But anyway, all that being said, that's Mike Malott's only loss. And then since then, he's had 2 decisions, 2 KO TKOs. One of them I know you were not happy with because of all the low blows on Kevin Holland, but still, this is a dangerous fighter. He's had 3 performance of the night bonuses. This guy he's definitely someone you shouldn't count out.
Yeah, you definitely don't let him kick you in the penis.
Anywhere in the nether region, just keep his feet away from there.
Yeah, it was brutal. Holland was definitely gimped up for the rest of the fight. He was at a severe disadvantage. Before the fight, he was competitive. After the low blows, he was at a distinct loss.
That is the most unconventional vasectomy I've ever seen.
Oh. It's not the way that I'd choose to go about it.
No. All right, so if we want to keep talking about title pictures, I'll tell you another one that I'm really interested in is flyweight. Flyweight is an interesting one.
Yeah.
Because, you have Pantoja.
Pantoja's back.
Pantoja is officially back. He's no longer injured and can't fight. He says he's good to go, but the fight's already booked between Van and Tyra. I still don't know why it was a Manel Cop, but whatever. It is what it is. So that fight had to get delayed. They didn't cancel it outright, but it did get delayed because that fight's supposed to happen on the last pay-per-view. The same one with Olberg and Yuri. And so it got delayed, and so we're supposed to be getting it next month. We're going to have Van versus Tyra, and I'm pretty excited for that one. I think it's going to be a good fight. And I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that Pantoja is going to come back and face the winner. I think Cop should be fighting whoever comes out on top of all of that between Tyra, Pantoja, and Van. As much as I don't like Cop, he's been winning his matches, and he is deserving to be up there. So,
yeah, another name that I think we're going to see up there pretty soon is Kavanaugh.
Dude, he looked really good in his last fight. Very, very, very good. I can't take anything away from him. But yeah, those top 4 names, Van, Pantoja, Cop, and Tyra, we really don't know.
I think Pantoja's going to take back the mountain this year.
I agree with you, and I hope so. But, some of these guys are really, really good.
Yeah.
He's already beat Cop, but it was by decision. That was a good handful of years ago. So, they've both improved a lot since then. So I think a rematch would not necessarily play out the same exact way. I don't think we've had Tyra versus Cop. Or is that the one? What's the one that Cop eye poked the guy? That was Kyoji, wasn't it? Horiguchi. I think that's the one where he eye poked the crap out of the guy. Yeah. So Cop hasn't fought Tyra yet, if I remember correctly. We have a lot of matches that haven't happened yet. Yeah, it's
I'm looking at it. He hasn't.
so. Do you see Kyoji Horiguchi is the one that Cop fought about a year or two ago, and that's the one where he was eye poking the guy over and over, and the ref didn't do anything about it, and he ends up winning by TKO.
Yeah. I am so glad that they're taking points now for fouls.
Yeah, long overdue.
It's making a difference, and the right guy still seems to win. It doesn't seem like it's really hindering the right guy winning, but it is making a difference in how many people are going out there and kicking someone in the junk or poking someone in the eye already.
Right. Yeah, whenever that happens, and especially if you win in a controversial way, I think maybe a rematch down the road should be in order. But
yeah.
Hey, speaking of rematches, I got some news. You know, there's another rematch on the horizon. There is someone who is 0-2 against an opponent, and next month he's going to face him again, but he's gotten a lot better since the last time he had those matches against the other guy. You know what I'm talking about?
You?
It is in fact me.
Ooh. So you're going to take down that black belt that's been pushing you around?
Oh no, that's not going to happen. There's no way. No, we compete by belt rank. So when I just became a blue belt, I was like a really new blue belt. Like a few months into being blue belt, I drove out to Mississippi. I signed up for two different weight division or two different brackets, not weight divisions. You have like your weight division, and then you have the challenger division, which is like they just break it up into two weight divisions, like everybody under 175 pounds and everybody above 175 pounds. And in both divisions, it was one guy in both of those brackets, and I faced the same guy 2 times in a row in the same exact day. The first match, I tried to take him down. I failed. He took me down. He smothered me, and I end up reversing at some point and getting into top position at the end. So I scored some points back. And then right after that, time ran out, and he had scored way more points than I did. So he beat me on points. And then about 20, 30 minutes later, we're having our second match, and I'm exhausted. And the match goes the same exact way, but he was like, oh, okay, I'm not going to try to arm bar him. Side note, I'm really good at getting out of arm bars. Sometimes I will sticking my arm up just so they try to arm bar me, because then I'll reverse it and I'll end up on top of you. And that's how I got it. That's how I reversed him and got on top of him in our first match. The second match, he takes me down the same position. He's going for a Kimura, and I start like straightening my arm up so he could try to go for an arm bar, and he just wouldn't go for it. And he kept fighting for the Kimura, just kept fighting it and fighting. And eventually, like, I just kept losing ground inch by inch by inch, and eventually he got me in a Kimura, and I had to tap. He got me by submission. Really good dude. We talked before our matches. We talked after our matches. He's a really solid competitor, very respectful. I have nothing but respect for him. But he beat me by decision, or it's not by decision, by points is what it's called. The equivalent of a decision, I guess you could say. And then he beat me by submission about 30 minutes later. And
it is time to reclaim your glory.
Yeah. So I signed up a few minutes before we started to record this podcast. I went and signed back up for they have another tournament coming up in Baton Rouge under the same organization. And so I was going to see on the athletes list, you could see like who's already signed up, and it's the same guy in one of my brackets. I was like, this will be the third time I face this guy. But yeah, it'll be exciting to see him again. And again, nothing but respect to the guy. Like he was very polite. He was very cool. You know, when he got me in the Kimura, like I actually tapped before I felt pain, because if you've been grappling long enough, you'll know like whenever you're in a joint lock, whether it's ankle lock, leg lock, arm lock, whether it's arm bar, Kimura, you know that when you get your arm or whatever joint it is gets to a certain point, you know that you're dead to rights. There's nothing you could do to stop it. So, you know, if you're not a competitor where like money's on the line, like you're a professional fighter, like UFC fighter or something like that, if it's just these little local events, I have to pay to compete. So it's not like I'm making money off of this. So if I lose, it's whatever. When my arm gets to a certain point and I know that like, okay, if my hand is past my hip bone, I'm not getting it back. He's got it sunk in. He's got the Kimura sunk in. Then, I go ahead and tap. As soon as I tapped, he immediately lets go and asked if I was okay and made sure he didn't hurt me. He's like super nice and super polite. One of the most polite competitors I've ever gone against. And he's a monster, dude. He got me down. And he's, like we're in the heaviest weight class. We're like the biggest guys on the mat. And he's spinning around and moving on top of me like a lightweight. When I got done with the match, our first match, and I went and I was kind of resting up between our first and second match, people were talking to me like, dude, I've never seen someone that big move that fast. I was like, oh, thank you. And they're like, no, him, the guy that you just faced. Oh, okay. He was quick.
How many low blows, eye gouges, and headbutts are y'all allowed before you start losing points in the jiu-jitsu community?
I don't know.
You need to test that. You can get some serious wins quick.
Well, I do know it's not quite the same as MMA. It's also going to vary a lot by what organization you're competing under, because they're all going to have their own set of rules. And I do know that, like, if accidental things happen, sometimes they'll pause the action for a little bit to reset things. One of the most common accidental fouls that you see in jiu-jitsu competition is accidental headbutts, because it's grappling. Like, people are getting up close and personal. Sometimes two people try to shoot at the same time, and in position, you're, jockeying for position, skulls collide sometimes. It happens. It happens on the mat all the time. It's normal, The other fouls you don't really see all that much. I
don't expect anybody to get kicked in the junk at a jiu-jitsu match.
It could happen. It could. I have in training. I haven't in competition, but it's happened in training. And
you kick someone in training?
Well, you got to think about, like, whenever you're doing a sweep or you're trying to frame with a foot or you're trying to do something like that, sometimes you're going to be pushing with your foot, and sometimes it ends up being like a accidental kick. Like, I can think of one time where I took a dude's back, and whenever I was going to put in the hooks, like you'd put your heels on their inner thighs, and just whenever I threw my heels around really quick, one of them was just a little bit too high, and we don't wear cups in jiu-jitsu. You're actually not allowed to in competition, because it can give more leverage for arm bars, so you could, like, damage arms. So you can't.
How does a cup give you more leverage in an arm bar?
Because an arm bar is between the legs. You pull an arm, like, you get their arm between the legs and you pull, and the cup will actually give more pressure in the upward part, like the elbow part.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you're actually not allowed to wear cups in competition in jiu-jitsu. I don't know about, like, other grappling organizations like ADCC or anything like that, but I know, like, IBJJF, AGF, Tap Cancer Out, all of those, you can't wear a cup. And so, like, of course, in the training room, we're not wearing cups. And so I remember there's one time, like I said, I was taking a dude's back, and whenever I put my hooks in, I misjudged where to put my heel, and I came up too high, and I caught him right in the junk. I felt bad about it, but then we continued rolling. And then I could think of another time when I was a white belt. I was going against a blue belt who's this huge guy. I hated rolling with him. He was not fun at all to roll with. He was one of those large guys who used 99% strength and 1% actual technique. And I was trying to pass a guard. He was, like, sitting down and framing with his hands and his feet up, and I was trying to get around his hands and feet to get into a good position. And as I got close, he went to go, like, push off with his foot to create distance. But when he pushed off, he didn't, like, to do a proper push with your foot or push with anything. What differentiates a strike and a push is you make contact and then you exert force. If you exert force and then make contact, that's a strike instead. You know what I mean? So if you want to push them with your foot, you put your heel or the ball of your foot or whatever on them, and then once you make contact, then you push off with your foot to push them off. He didn't do that. He just quickly throws his foot out there, heel right into my nads. By the way, this dude was about 6'4", 6'5", and maybe 250 pounds, and a weightlifter. He was built like a brick house, and he full force kicks me right in the jewels, and I just fall over, crumple to my side, and I just tap the mat. I'm like, I'm done. Nope. I'm good.
That's where the streak comes out, and you gotta win that fight by any means necessary. After that,
I don't know if I was in a condition. I was in Kevin Holland mode at that point. I had nothing. I was certain. Also, that's my little white belt self against that dude I don't know about that. Maybe now.
when are we going to see you join RAF so that you can start your way to the UFC?
Wouldn't that be wild? I'd be like the first, 50-year-old UFC champion.
I mean, you still got some time for your Randy Couture's age.
I think I'm older than everybody that's ranked right now in the heavyweight rankings. Who's the oldest? God.
Who's the old man?
I don't know. I don't feel like looking at all that. I think the oldest one's going to be like in their probably mid-30s. How old's Derek Lewis? Actually, he might be older than me.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I think it might be Lewis.
Derek Lewis is... He's 41. He's 2 years younger than me. Well, I'm 42, but I mean, it says that he was born in 85 and I was born in 83. So it looks like his birthday's already hit this year and mine hasn't. Or wait. Is that right? Yeah, his birthday's hit this year and mine hasn't. So I'm like a year and a half older than him.
Yeah, I currently have a year up on you for the next few months.
Yep. But yeah, so I'll be competing again. It'll be fun.
Nice. We'll see if I can make it out to this one. I'll be your cheerleading section.
It'll be in Baton Rouge. The last time I competed, it was the same location, same organization as well. And Rick came out and watched me compete. And I had one match.
Well, if I come out and watch you, you better win.
Well, I won when Rick watched me. My one single match against my opponent who had 7 matches that day, and I was his 7th match.
Was he a blue belt?
Yeah, like we all, it's the same belt rank.
How many stripes?
I don't know. He got promoted to purple belt not long after that.
Ah.
He's actually a friend of mine that I train in the gym with.
So wait, you beat a guy who got promoted to purple belt?
He got promoted to purple belt like a month or two later.
Interesting. Maybe purple belt is on the horizon for you.
I don't know. He's been a blue belt way longer than I was, so that's part of the reason why. Also, because I'm just very transparent, honest, and I have no shame. I don't really care. Just because I beat him in competition doesn't mean I'm necessarily way better than him because, like I said, we train together in the gym a whole lot, and he gets me more than I get him in the gym.
But not when it counted.
Yep, he was super exhausted, and I was fresh, but hey.
You can make excuses or you can take the W.
Yeah, I think they call that a humble brag, right?
Yeah.
No.
Weird flags.
Yeah, it was fun. I've only competed a handful of times, and I don't. It's always been pretty respectable competitors, except for the guy who injured me. And it's not even. I'm not even salty about that because he injured me. It's because he just didn't really seem to give a damn after that. Like he didn't really check up on me. He didn't talk to me afterwards or anything like that. He was just kind of very dismissive. And I was like, bro, you just spiked me on my head. Yeah, but everybody else I competed with has actually been pretty cool with me. Some of them I've even made friends with.
Cool.
And at least one I was friends with before we competed. So. But yep, I will be competing again May 23rd. Is there an event? Of course there's an event. There's always an event in the UFC on a Saturday. So let's see what event is happening the same day that I'll be competing. Fun fact, the day I got promoted blue belt was a UFC 300, same exact day. I got promoted blue belt the morning of UFC 300. April 13th. I'll never forget that date. Also my brother's birthday. All right, so getting closer here. Let's see.
There is no May 23rd card.
Really?
Really? It's just you, buddy. All eyes on you. I'll stream it live on the channel, on the YouTube, and do commentary. Maybe we can get Rick there.
Huh. The one of the few weekends that we don't have an event happens to be the one that I'm competing. Interesting. I'll be competing after, let's see, after Allen versus Costa. That is Arnold Allen and Melquizel Costa. Did he just fight? He just fought. And before Song Yudong versus Davison Figueiredo. I'll be fighting between those two events. Or I'll be having a match.
Yeah, he fought in February.
Yeah, and he's fighting again in May. It's a 3-month turnaround. And he looked really good in that fight, too. Really good in that fight. Like, scary good in that fight. Didn't he get a performance bonus? Pretty sure he did.
Ooh, I have a name that you need to pronounce.
Uh-oh.
Featherweight co-main.
Oh, hold on. I gotta pull that one up. Which event is it you're talking about?
May 16th.
May 16th? All right, give me a few minutes. I gotta pull it back up. I'm scrolling through.
I'm not waiting a few minutes. That's just a thing.
It's a figure of speech, bruh. May 16th. Which one? Wait, what?
Featherweight co-main.
Daniel Santos?
No.
His opponent?
Yes.
Why are you doing this to me? I'm trying. Every time I start to try to say it, I laugh. Choi Doohoo.
Doohoo.
Choi Doohoo.
We're just gonna have to call him Super Mario.
Doohoo. All right, so I think that's all I really have to talk about this week. Next week, let's see. What do we have going on next week?
UFC Perth.
Yeah. That'll actually be a good one.
That's going to be an exciting one.
Yep. Well, I think that's all we need to talk about this week. If we have some really good fights to talk about next week, we'll do a bit of recap on that. We might do a little bit of a deeper dive on some of the other divisions, title pictures, and all that fun stuff. If any big MMA news comes out, we'll talk about that. I haven't really seen a lot of big MMA news. The biggest MMA news is the talks of Max Holloway versus Conor McGregor on International Fight Week, but that's not even set in stone. That's why we haven't really deep dove into that just yet. But other than that, it's been a fairly slow news week. It's been a slow news set of weeks.
Yeah, it's been kind of dead.
Yeah. All right, let me ask you one question before we go. We're a little bit over an hour at this point. Let me ask you one more question before we go. Of all the upcoming title fights that are coming up, which one are you most excited for?
Pereira gone.
Really?
Yep, Pereira gone. I need the heavyweight division to get back on track, and I need to see Pereira take Gane and snipe him down. I want him to do the bow and arrow over Gane's unconscious body.
That's actually not the one that I'm most excited for.
Which one are you looking forward to? Strickland Chimaev?
Yeah. And Alex,
That's a big one.
I want to talk more about that. The thing is, we're already a bit over an hour. I have a lot to say on my thoughts on this match. I've been thinking about this match before it was booked. Before Chimaev was even champion, I've been thinking about a potential matchup between Strickland and Chimaev and how it might play out. So this is a fight I've been looking forward to for literally years. Literally years. So I have a lot I want to say on it. I think we'll save that for another week. Maybe when we get closer to that event. That's going to be, when is that fight? Is that UFC 329?
That's 328.
That's 328.
May 9th.
Oh, that's coming up really soon, actually.
Yep.
Well, I guess next
Rick
week
said he's going to be in town for it, so we'll all have to get together.
Nice. Yeah, so I think next week we should probably take that time to sit and discuss, really deep dive that fight and what we think about that fight and how it might play out. We'll save that for next week. I have a lot to say on that.
I didn't know Volkov was fighting Waldo Cortez Acosta on 328. That's awesome.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, so next week, what I'm going to do real quick before we go, I'm going to spitball my predictions. I got Prates, Salkild, Urseg. I guess Ollie Schmid. I'm going to go with Shamil Gaziev and Louis Sutherland. That's my quick predictions. I'm not going to go into all the details on why. That'll take forever. I think the lock of the night is Salkild over Dariush.
Yeah, I'm thinking Jack Delta Motel Llama over Prates. Salkild, I'm big on his corner. Urkeg, I think, and then Rahiki, because I like his name. It's like the monkey in Lion King. And then Perichik and Sutherland. Because Taito Abasa hasn't won jack in years.
Actually,
I think he's forgotten how to win.
I might change one of my predictions real quick. Give me a minute. Let me look up something. Yeah, I actually said the wrong name on one of them. I am also taking the monkey from Lion King. I'm going for Rahiki. Yeah. I was looking at the names. I said the wrong name. So let me correct myself on that. Again, I got Prates, Salkild, Urseg, Rahiki, Gaziev, and Sutherland. That's my predictions. And do we agree Salkild's the lock of the night?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the obvious. Dariush is going to have a bad time.
I like Dariush so much. I think he's a good, respectable fighter. He seems like a really nice guy. He gives really exciting fights. I think he's well-rounded. He's also really good at jiu-jitsu, but his last few fights, he looked good against Moicano. But outside of that fight,
Salkild's a killer, man.
Salkild is an absolute killer. Like, I remember that. I've mentioned it numerous times now, that head kick that almost killed the guy. And then his very next fight, he shows that he has incredible grappling. He wins by submission. Then he tells everybody, "Yeah, I'm a submission artist first. Like, I'm better at submissions than I am striking." I'm like, "You are?" After that head kick a few months ago? Seriously? Yeah, this dude's the future. I get future champ vibes from this guy. So I'm sorry, Dariush. I love you, man. You're a legend. I think you might even be a future, I don't know, maybe Hall of Famer is a bit of a stretch. You will definitely be remembered. But it's Salkild's time.
Yes.
All right, so I think that's all we got for this week. I think next week we're definitely going to have to do a recap, because this is actually a good fight night that we have next week, and it's rolling into a really good pay-per-view. So we're definitely going to be tuning in next week to talk about the card in Perth and then UFC 328. So make sure you tune in. You don't want to miss all of that. So sign us out, Roy.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, kings and queens, lords and lordettes, thank you for tuning in to the Ground and Pound Cast, the most explosive pound cast in Louisiana.
And be sure to root for me on May 23rd whenever I have my jiu-jitsu match.
Yes, we will see what we can do about live streaming that on the YouTube channel so that everyone can watch and cheer.
Yeah, third time hopefully be the charm. I'm coming for you, Quentin. I'm coming for you.
Oh, you're fighting Rampage?
Not that Quentin.
Well, in my head, it's that Quentin.
Sounds good. You're dead, Rampage.
Way into heavyweight.
You're dead, Rampage. I hope to God he doesn't hear me say that. I'm going to run into him at like some event. He'd be like, "Are you the guy on Ground and Pound Cast?" I'm like, "You've heard of us?" And he's going to nod and stare at me, kind of like he always did Ariel Helwani back in their interviews. Remember, like, all of their little back and forth?
Heard you got something against Quentins.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you all next week.